ever wanted to open your own brewery and make ales? Well, that's exactly what you can do in the new early access game, Ale Abbey. We were lucky enough to get an early peek into Ale Abbey, and today we're going to be going through all you need to know about this game and whether or not we think it's worth buying in early access. This is something we do regularly here at the Indie Brew, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want more indie game content. Without further ado, let's dive in to the brewing magic that is Ale Abbey. Now, when you think of like a beer or ale tycoon, a monastery is not really the setting you'd probably think about. But that is the setting of this game. So Ale Abbey is set in the kind of 14th, 15th century Rome, so in ancient Rome, and you essentially are the caretaker behind an abbey that is built for the purpose of brewing ales and selling them to the masses. So you start with a very basic monastery and you're making pretty basic ale. So you start with the recipe for a light ale, and you actually have to go in and make each of your ale recipes. So when you get into the recipe window, you'll see that you have a lot of options for ingredients, and you also have a rating scale for 4 different virtues, which are flavor, color, strength, and foam. Obviously, all the important things for ales. You'll need to choose which ingredients you want to go into your ale, and each of these ingredients will affect those virtues in a different way. Now, there is green, red, and yellow zones for each of the virtues, which varies depending on what type of ale you're making. So you do need to get a little bit crafty and make sure that your ale is sitting in all greens if you can, because that is going to produce a better quality ale. To be able to brew these ales, or actually make the recipes in the first place, you need to have some monks that you hire. You are able to browse through a different list of different monks, or fermentines as they are called, which are nuns and monks that you can choose from. And you get to hire them. They each have different scores for different things like intuition, productivity, and they also have a drunken scale, which you will need to take into account because yes, your monks can get drunk. Once you've got some monks hired, ready to go, you'll need to construct your brewery, and then you can get brewing ales. To brew the ales, you basically just select the recipe and then select how much you want to brew. It does cost to brew each ale, so you need to pay for all the ingredients to be able to make them. Once you've selected which ale you're brewing and how much you want, you then select your monk that you want to make the ale, and each one has different attributes and different experience, and the higher the experience, the better their attributes, the lower their drunkenness, the better the quality of the ale will turn out. So you can have a look and you'll be able to select which one you want to be brewing the ale. Each ale does take a different amount of time to be brewed, and depending on who's brewing it, it can take a shorter amount of time or a longer amount of time. So that is definitely something to consider. But once they are brewed, you are then able to sell the ales to the masses. When you first start, you only have one location that you can sell to, and that is the only thing opened up. And then the more ale you sell, the more experience points you gain with that specific location, and then you can unlock more things as you go. Once you get to a certain point of experience with a location, you can then start receiving custom orders for ales as well, which means they might ask you to brew a specific type of ale, a specific amount of liters of that ale, and you get a initial payment for that ale to help cover the costs, and then you get a final payment once it's delivered. Selling ale isn't the only thing you can do with it, because you also need to ensure your monks' happiness, and part of their happiness is making sure they've got ale to drink too. You need to make sure that you store some of your ale for them to drink, or otherwise they get a bit rowdy, okay? They get a bit rowdy. The other thing that you can use the stored ale for is bribery, because of course brewing ale in a monastery is not enough. We also need to add bribery to our repertoire. You do have bandits that will start attacking your wagons of ale as they make their way to the different locations. You can actually bribe those bandits with ale or with coins to be able to stop them from attacking. You do start with one location, but as you get to a certain experience levels, you'll be given a specific task, and once you complete that task, you'll then unlock another location and another location, another location, and so on, until you have quite a few locations to choose from. Each location has a different market base, so they have different preferences. They'll pay different amounts for specific ales, and they have different demands as well. So some cities will have a higher demand for a light ale, and other cities will have a higher demand for like a blonde ale or a herbal ale or an amber ale or an old ale, whatever it may be. You also can only sell certain ales to specific cities, so some cities won't accept certain types of ale at all. So you do need to keep that in mind when you're brewing your ales to sell. There is quite a lot of ales to unlock. I believe there's 20 different types of ales that you can progress through in the early access version. So there is a lot there to unlock, and each ale has its different challenges, and you need to kind of get creative with how you brew them. You also unlock more ingredients as you progress, which have different qualities and different attributes, so you're able to balance your ales differently. So you'll find as you progress, you might want to actually go back and redo your recipes for some of the earlier ales as you get the new ingredients. Now, brewing makes up most of the gameplay in this game, but one of the other things you need to think about is looking after your monastery. For your monks to be happy, they do need to have an adequate amount of light in their workspaces, and the monastery needs to look kind of pretty. So you need to make sure that you are placing enough candles or later lanterns to be able to keep the monastery lit. And you also need to put some decorations like flowers or pictures or that kind of thing, which you can unlock as you progress. Now, the lights do need to be maintained, so you do need to relight your candles or restock them. And your monks are messy, all right? They are messy. They leave their mugs of ale littering the floor and paper littering the floor. So you also need to keep your rooms clean by sweeping them. Later on, you can unlock custodians, which will do that for you and which will maintain everything for you. So you can automate that, but earlier on in the game, you do need to maintain that yourself. Speaking of unlocking things, there is a really great research tree in the game. So the research tree has two different sides. You have your innovation side, which is your equipment and your techniques and things like that. And then you have your decoration side, which is all the pretty things that don't really have much function. The innovation side will let you unlock ways to make your ale quality better, ways to add different ingredients, ways to make things faster, that kind of thing. And the decoration will unlock different pretty things that you can place around your monastery. Now, the research tree is important because it will let you unlock things like adding fruit to your ales, it will unlock adding spices to your ales, it will unlock different qualities and things that you can do. So it is important as you progress through the game because you will need those things to be able to complete some of the later missions to unlock new markets. One of the other things that is introduced a little bit later in the game is the merchant. So once you unlock the storage room, you're able to buy ingredients from the merchant, and you can buy ingredients on sale, which can save you in your running costs. So you can build storerooms, buy the ingredients, store them there, and then when you go to brew an ale, it will use those ingredients first. So you can save on ingredients, especially if they go out of market. And there is a whole in-season market that you can go through with all different ingredients, that some will be in season at certain times and some will be on sale at certain times. So it can make a big difference if you stock up on ingredients, especially the expensive ones. Currently in the early access version, there's at least 8 hours of gameplay there to be able to unlock everything that is available. It is capped based on the tiers of research you can unlock. So only the first couple of levels of the research tree are available to unlock in the early access stage. So it's limited by that, not so much limited by what else you can do, and you can still unlock a really decent amount of locations and things like that, but you can essentially play endlessly without upgrading your research. You just won't progress any further. You'll kind of sit at a certain level. There's definitely a lot of potential in how this one will develop, and I'm really keen to see the full roadmap that will hopefully come out when it releases, to see what else they're planning on adding, because I think there really is some really great bones to this game. It's interesting to see a side-scrolling tycoon game. We haven't seen that done a lot. We have seen games like News Tower and Potion Tycoon in recent times come out with the side-scrolling layout, and I think it's really fun, especially when you've got things like your cellars that you need to have to be able to age your ales. It's really clever to be able to have that layout for your monastery. The game definitely has a really satisfying game loop with you make the recipe, you brew the ale, you sell the ale, and it really gives you a lot of satisfaction. As you scale your monastery and build more brewing rooms, you can brew more ale and you can sell more ale. and the loop just gets bigger and better as you progress. It does also have its challenges though, because you do obviously need that initial funds to be able to brew the ale. So you can be kind of sitting and waiting for your ale to sell before you can actually brew anymore, which does kind of balance it out. I did have a few bugs in my gameplay, which hopefully will be addressed in the day one patch, but none of them were major at all. There were just little tiny bugs that just meant that I had to reset something, and it wasn't a big deal at all. The design and the music is fantastic. It really sets this scene for this, 14th century Rome kind of feel, and it feels really great to play. Now, as I mentioned, there will be a roadmap coming out with the release, so keep an eye for what's next. But in my opinion, this is absolutely worth buying at its current state. There's plenty of gameplay in there. It's got a really satisfying game loop. There definitely is a high quality to what you're playing. It doesn't feel unfinished. It doesn't feel empty. It just feels like it's early access because it's capped at the later game kind of gameplay that obviously will be added as you play. And I think it's definitely worth a buy at this stage. Now, Ale Abbey will be heading to Steam in early access on February 18th. So depending on when you're watching this, it might already be out. Definitely make sure you check out the link in the description below to go and check out this game. That is a wrap on this first look into the early access of Ale Abbey. We'd love to know what you think. Have you bought the game? Have you played it? Let us know in the comments below. If you're looking for more indie game recommendations, click here. And until next time, stay caffeinated.